I'm not really doing anything different to what I usually do. You know, there's so much to be done with this movie, musically. There's so many ways to go. I hope it'll be the culmination of everything that I've learnt since I started to be a film composer, which is relatively recently. I spent many years teaching music in Africa and Egypt. It was through my association with Hans Zimmer, who first inspired me. I met him when he was doing The Lion King, I think, and I couldn't believe what fun he was having with music to pictures. And it had never really occurred to me that that might be a possibility. It might be a job I could do. I mean, I was always going to be doing music, but he gave me a lot of encouragement and actually gave me a plane ticket to come over from London to LA about 10 years ago. Having invited me over, and it was a case of, look, if I can do it, you can, which gave me a lot of confidence. And I naturally fell into doing films like The Borrowers or Ants or Chicken Run, family films, children-based films. And although I veered off in the last several years, I've done a lot of thrillers and some pretty dark stuff with Tony Scott, and recently with his brother Ridley Scott. It is at heart, it's really what I feel that I probably most can offer. My parents gave me and my brothers the books when I was about 8 or something like that. I think there were 7 books on there, and we read through them all. And I love them, but I'm actually doing the movie not necessarily because I love the books, but because I was asked to do it by Andrew Adamson, who's the director. And the reason he asked me, I think, is because we worked together before. We did Shrek and Shrek 2. This one is very different. It's also very much glued together with music. The score, which I'm responsible for, and, you know, well over 100 minutes of it. So if you think of, you know, 100 minutes of symphonic music, that's probably about 3 Beethoven symphonies in a row. It's kind of scary. Each time I'm at the beginning of such a huge voyage, you know, it's incredibly. It's nerve-wracking because it's not just the amount of work that needs to be done, but, you know, just like any other person, artist or whatever, I frequently ask myself, you know, I have no idea whether I can really do this. But one has to have courage, and that's another thing Andrew's very good at. He really is very encouraging, and it's necessary to have, you know, because it's kind of a lonely task. You're left in your ivory tower to compose the music. An editor, film editor, gets to sit with Andrew every day in the edit room. That's where they're cutting the movie. I don't know, I'm not saying his task is any easier than mine, but I don't want Andrew there every day, every minute of the day. It's going to cramp my style, but when he comes, it's really necessary. He comes and feels what I'm trying to do. I sequence a lot of my music up on computers so that it mocks it up so that he can sort of hear what it's going to be like. And he's very open about it. He's very quick. I'll play him a piece of music, and he doesn't hang about. He'll say, oh, that touches me in just the right spot. But you know what? If it could move a little brighter towards the end, as Lucy does so-and-so or whatever, I'd really appreciate it. Well, we really don't spend too much time in World War II. We realise that right at the beginning of the movie we're shown the reason the children have to leave London, to go and stay in a house that isn't theirs, that they know nothing about. Musically and pictorially, there's a big difference between the first act of the movie, where the children arrive at this house in the country and are looked after by some adults they don't know, who are perfectly kind, but they don't know them, they're not their parents. And then when Lucy first steps through the wardrobe into Narnia, there's a marked change there. Not a bump, I hope, but a change musically, where things start to become a little fantastical. No one particularly knows what Narnia is supposed to sound like, so it was pretty nice to be able to start with a blank canvas and work and create it myself. As I've moved through the first act into the second act, when we get into Narnia, of the children, Peter and Lucy have distinctive themes. Peter, because he's going to become very heroic later on, and Lucy, really, because she's so adorable, and her character is the more inquisitive, and she's the first to go to Narnia. And she's actually the raison d'etre for a lot of this to happen. So those two, as a whole, they have a family theme, which we hear at the beginning of the movie. We're going to hear that become quite fractured and splintered as they pull apart and then come together at the end. And we have a theme for Tumnus, the fawn, because he's such a great little character. He's the first kind of strange character we meet in Narnia. A theme for the White Witch, clearly. A theme for Aslan. And a feeling for the prophecy. I wouldn't call it a tune. It's not got too many notes, but hopefully you should know it when you feel it. I have two themes for Narnia, one which we didn't really know what to call it, since we've got two Narnia themes, but we called it the historical Narnia theme. That meaning that it's more about trying to give the music a feeling of Narnia has a history before we were even there. It's not something new. It's kind of like a folk tune, in a way. And I had to be careful it didn't sound too Irish or Scottish, because it's out of that bag, it's a pea out of that pod. It's very simple, and it has a feeling of history to it. And an extension of that theme is more the beauty of Narnia, and that's quite sweeping and orchestral, quite a long tune. Although the orchestra, it contains all the regular instruments that you would normally find in an orchestra, quite often they're not the central focus of the music that you're going to hear in the movie. Perhaps they're accompanying some big drums. Or they're accompanying an ethnic flute. or in many cases, I've gone for some really sparkly sounds, and I had to dig quite deep. I mean, the piano and the celeste are very childlike, and they seem to fit Narnia really well, but they're quite generic. But the orchestra is the main thrust of the musical expression, and with its power and its sort of dignity, it would seem like the tool I really needed to use. I have a lot of pre-records, what we call pre-records. The orchestra players can hear it as they're laying down, say, a string bed. On tape is already perhaps an ethnic flute picking out a top line. Well, I've done a stack of animation and I've done a lot of live action, but this film is a bit of both. There's a very serious story there, but it's also fun, you know? And I love the way that Andrew's made the film, that it's got a lot in it for everybody, really.